situation. Always trust your gut.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne. You are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. Residue is not just another true crime podcast, but a necessary tool for those who want to understand the dangers lurking in the real world. You are listening to episode 71, Relationship Status Single, The Murder of Hayley Jones. As always, listener discretion is advised. New Tredegar in the heart of the Welsh Valleys. It was 2009 and Hayley Jones had 4 children, a home she barely managed to keep afloat, and a husband whose face had become a stranger to her. Life in New Tredegar was hard, but it had always been hard. The valley was full of people just like Hayley, struggling, living from one paycheck to the next, just surviving. Brian, her husband, had been her first love, or at least the first love that ever felt like it could last. They'd met at a carnival when she was just 13 years old. Brian was 18 years old. Now, as part of my research for this story, I watched a TV show called Click for Murder, and I was a little disturbed. I was a lot disturbed by the fact that Hayley being 13 and Brian being 18 was just kind of pushed to the side when talking about this story. I was so disturbed, in fact, that I stopped trying to research this story, and I really wasn't even going to record it because I couldn't understand how it was just so acceptable to everyone and how Hayley's family was okay with this. But then they mentioned in the episode that there are different ways of life. And so I looked a little deeper into it, and I was trying to understand what it was like in New Tredegar, South Wales at this time, and why so many people were just okay with this. And now this docuseries also mentions this exact fact. So this is not me. I think Hayley is a child at this point. This is very disturbing to me. She is just a little girl. They say that small communities like those in the valleys can sometimes have a, quote, we mind our own business attitude, where people's private lives are less likely to be questioned unless something extreme happens. In a place like New Tredegar, where everyone knows each other, there's sometimes a sense of collective understanding that might allow relationships that would be frowned upon elsewhere to continue without much comment. There are just so many layers to Hayley's story. This whole case is so complex, and I wanted to tell it because it is very important. It is another reminder that when a person tries to leave an abusive relationship and they are taking the steps to make that separation happen, that this is the most dangerous time for that person. Hayley met Brian at a carnival when she was just a teenager, and it was one of those moments where everything else fell away. Looks as though Hayley has her very first crush, and let's be honest here. She is not in love with this man, even if she says she was. She is 13 years old. She does not know any better, and there is no reason that an 18-year-old man needs to be dating or sexually attracted to a 13-year-old child. That is disgusting and insane. But this is the first time that Hayley believes that she has fallen in love. This is the same way we all feel at age 13 when we see that cute boy in class and we get a little flutter in our heart and we think he is the most adorable person in the world. But he's the same age as us, and that's called a crush. But 3 years later, by age 16, Hayley is now pregnant with her first child with Brian. When their first child arrives, Hayley is 16 and Brian is 21. 4 years later, by the age of 20, Hayley will now be the mother to 4 children, and she's having kids one right after the other. 4 kids in 4 years. And now, by the time Hayley turns 22, she's feeling trapped. Her friends are still in school. Her friends are chasing their dreams. She's stuck at home with crying babies, dirty diapers, and she hadn't had the time to figure out who she was. Brian has been grooming her since she was 13 years old. She's now 22. She's never had a childhood. This is all she knows. She went straight into motherhood. And by age 22, Hayley just feels like she's just surviving. She's not living. She's just trying to make it through the day. Brian worked on the railways and had a steady enough job that he was able to pay the bills, and he was able to save up enough money to buy the family a small house 2 streets away from Hayley's family, which was perfect because now her mother could help out with the 4 children. From the outside, it looks like this family didn't have much to call their own, but they had each other, and it seemed like they were making ends meet and surviving as a lovely family. In 2007, 10 years after they'd first met, the cracks begin to show. Brian lost his job, and with it, he lost something inside of himself. He started to seem like he was breaking down. He was very insecure. He didn't want to be known as the guy who couldn't support his family. At just age 29, Brian had gone from feeling proud of providing for his family to feeling small and worthless. His insecurities were like an opened wound. He struggled to find work. The frustration was very obvious. He stopped really being around his family a lot, and he spent almost all of his time in the pubs drinking away the little money that the family had. And in his frustration, Brian started treating his wife horribly. He thought that she had become someone that he couldn't recognize. Yeah, Brian, you started grooming her at age 13. Of course you can't recognize her now at age 22 with 4 kids and a husband who isn't working, and she's just struggling her ass off every single day. So for the first time in her life, Hayley gets a job. She starts working at a nursing home with her mother, and she is working some long ass days. Hayley's working 12 to 14 hours a day. She is coming home at night, and she is still taking care of 4 children and then her 5th child, Brian, her husband. And actually, on that note, I just want to state that Brian and Hayley were never legally married. They were considered common law husband and wife. They did still refer to each other as boyfriend and girlfriend at times. And now Hayley is exhausted. She is always working, always on her feet, always moving. And despite her tiredness, she felt something inside of her starting to stir. She starts feeling like she's more than just a mother. She's more than just Brian's common law wife or girlfriend. And Brian can't handle this. Brian begins to berate her, belittle her, calling her names, telling her she was unattractive and that if she ever leaves him, no one is ever going to want her. Why do they always do that? If you think that I'm unattractive and no one else is going to want me, then fucking leave me alone. Why do these narcissists always go there? With her hard-earned money, Hayley buys herself a laptop, and Hayley joins Facebook. Facebook is just starting to rage right now. It's 2009. Brian couldn't stand the way that Hayley smiled and how excited she was every time she would come home from work, sit at the kitchen table, open her laptop, and typing away, smiling. It was making him so paranoid. He thought, she's definitely cheating on me. Oh, there's no way that another guy is going to make her smile. I will take care of this. I will not let this happen. He would get really angry if he would walk into a room and Hayley would quickly shut the laptop or X out of whatever page she was on. And now Brian is convinced that she has to be cheating on him. No one can talk him off of this ledge. He's thinking, well, she must have met some new friends at work. She must have met some new guys at work. And now they're all chatting online behind my back. And with that, it wasn't just that she's on the computer. It was the fact that she had independence now. She wasn't the little girl that he'd met at the carnival anymore. She was someone else. And she was someone that no longer needed Brian in her life. And she was starting to see what a mess this relationship was. And Brian could not stand that. He could not let her go. By the end of 2008, Hayley is realizing she is trapped in a relationship with a verbally abusive and violent partner. Hayley is starting to use Facebook all day when she isn't working. And according to Brian, she's not even paying attention to him anymore. She isn't speaking to him when he's in the house. She's just on her laptop. Hayley's starting to realize she never knew a life without Brian. And she's starting to see that she can have a life without him. She's discussing her relationship now with her friends on Facebook. And that is a good thing, because when she starts discussing this, she starts realizing what a bad situation she is in. And now she has outside support, which is basically Brian's worst nightmare. By the end of February 2009, Brian's anger starts to turn towards his children. He left one of his children bruised and crying, and this incident just sparks Hayley's need to escape Brian. She tells him she wants a separation, and then that night she goes on her Facebook account and she posts her relationship status to single. A few days after changing her relationship status on Facebook, March 6th, 2009, Brian and Hayley decide to go out to a local pub with two of their friends. The friends say that the couple bickered the entire night. Brian was getting really tipsy and he and Hayley just kept arguing back and forth, so they decide to just leave. But this couple that they were with say that when they got into their car, they could see Brian and Hayley in their car fighting and arguing, and they saw Brian slap Hayley across the face. But no one intervenes, no one says anything, no one separates the couple for the night. No one even asks if Hayley's okay. Hayley and Brian just go home for the night. But after they arrive home, Brian decides to go stay with his family for a few days. That incident that happened in the car with the slapping and the yelling, it was a little too much. Brian leaves, and he says when he returns, they will decide what they're going to do. But a few days apart isn't going to change Hayley's mind. She doesn't want to be with Brian. She gives him the ultimatum. Either you leave this house for good, or I'm going to leave this house for good with the children. Basically, Hayley's in her bad bitch era right now, and she is not going to be standing for any of this bullshit anymore. On March 8th, 2009, Brian hangs out at a local pub, and he can be heard saying things like, "If I can't have her, then no fucker else will, because I will kill her first." But again, no one took him seriously. They just thought that Brian was drunk. He was just a little upset about the Facebook status thing. No one thought that he would actually hurt Hayley. On March 10th, 2009, Hayley returns home from a 12-hour shift again. She sees Brian in the house still, so she just ignores him. She's tired. She goes up to her bedroom. She gets changed, lays on her bed, opens up her computer. Brian walks in and loses his damn mind because she is on that computer again. He grabs her, drags her out of the bed by her hair, takes her laptop that she bought with her own money, takes it outside and smashes it on the ground, wrecked. Hayley tells Brian, "Get the hell out of my house." These two were already sleeping apart. Hayley was sleeping on the couch every night, and Brian was taking the bed because he's a gentleman. On March 11th, 2009, Brian goes down to the pub again, spending Hayley's money to drown in his own sorrows. He was seen there acting depressed, telling bar patrons that he's never going to let Hayley leave. He's saying this again. So people have been hearing this over and over, and no one's taking him seriously. But thankfully, on March 11th, 2009, Hayley is on her laptop, she's on Facebook, and people are telling her that they have noticed that Brian seems off lately, that he is saying weird things. And thankfully, these people finally came forward and told Hayley something's going on. And Hayley said, no, it's okay. I've told him he has to leave and he's just acting up because he's supposed to be out of this house soon. That night, March 11th, 2009, Brian arrives home drunk, walks into the apartment, doesn't even look Hayley's way. When Hayley saw him walk in, she messaged a friend on Facebook.
He's in and is being a bit difficult. He's starting again.
It is the very early hours of March 12th, 2009. Hayley is asleep on the couch. She was using 2 sleeping bags and she was clothed. Hayley left the TV on that night and it kept Brian up and it kept Brian angry and awake. He runs downstairs to confront her. He's still drunk and they start arguing about her being online again. And this argument wakes up their 5-year-old. Hayley's still laying on the couch. She's still half asleep. Brian walks into the kitchen, grabs a knife from the drawer, doesn't care that his kids could be awake, his kids could listen to this. He walks straight into the living room. Hayley is laying on the couch and he just stabs her right in the stomach. He doesn't hit any vital organs because the knife ended up hitting Hayley's ribs. She falls off the couch. She is still wrapped to her neck in this sleeping bag. Brian gets on top of her. He straddles her and he puts his hands around her neck and chokes her. Hayley's son is standing at the top of the stairs hearing this. He tells the officers that he heard his mother say to Brian, "We have children together. Why are you doing this to me?" And Brian starts choking her harder. He's got his hands around her throat. Hayley's 5-year-old son says that he soon heard his mother go silent and then he heard his father walk into the bedroom, pick up the phone, and call the police. When he did call the police, he admitted to the murder. He said, "I just killed my girlfriend." Then Brian fled the scene, leaving his 4 children in that home alone with their dead mother. Brian takes off, but Brian's 4 children, they live so close to their grandmother that those 4 little babies, they start running down the street screaming for their grandmother. They finally make it to her house. The police are called, and now there is a manhunt on for Brian. When paramedics arrive at the crime scene, they are trying to revive Hayley. They try to stick a tube down her throat so that they can get some air to her, but her windpipe had been crushed. Within hours of the murder, Brian actually turns himself in to the Blackwood police station. When he gets there, he tells them that, yes, I did kill Hayley, but it was an accident. He is charged with Hayley's murder. Then he pleaded not guilty on the grounds of diminished responsibility. So police are going to have to prove that this was a premeditated attack. Brian claimed it happened accidentally. He's claiming that they got into an argument and he had a knife in his hand because get this excuse. Brian had a knife in his hand because he was cutting his fingernails. As he's cutting his fingernails with this humongous butcher knife, his wife starts yelling at him and she runs towards him and oops, he accidentally stabbed her with the knife. Of course, police are like, okay, Brian, bullshit. The thing is that Hayley was wrapped in 2 sleeping bags. They were almost up to her neck. She was all cozy inside of these 2 sleeping bags when she was on that couch. And when police found her at the home, lifeless, she was still laying on the floor wrapped in those 2 sleeping bags. So there is no way that Hayley charged at Brian. A jury did not buy this story at all either, and it only took them a couple of hours to find Brian Lewis guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 14 years. Leaving an abusive relationship is terrifying, and it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot to tell this person that has been abusing you that you want to leave. And we all know that this is the most dangerous time for a woman. It feels like you have no safety net. And the moment you make this decision to leave, it can feel just like surreal and everything around you is slipping away. You're overwhelmed. You're scared of what could happen next, where you're going to go, how you're going to survive. Every step away from your abuser is an act of courage, but it's a journey that demands careful planning and immense strength. And Hayley was ready. She was ready for this. She had everything in place. She knew what she wanted. And I want to leave you with one more thing. When police did a forensics investigation on Hayley's laptop, they found that there was no affair, no deception. She wasn't speaking to any man at all. Hayley was speaking to her friends. She finally had a circle of friends. She finally felt safe. So Brian was wrong the entire time. Brian took the life of his kid's mother for no reason at all other than he needed to remain in control. Everyone deserves relationships free from domestic violence. If you or anyone you know needs help, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text BEGIN, BEGIN, to 88788. It is so important to have a circle of support around you in these desperate times. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Residue. You know I appreciate you all so very much. I hope you will join me back here again every Tuesday. Just hit that little follow button and you'll know when a new episode of Residue is about to drop. If you could be so kind as to maybe leave a 5-star review if you had a little time, if you enjoyed the show, that is actually the best way to help out the show. Residue is created, hosted, researched, written, edited, and produced by me, Chrissy Champagne. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my show, and I hope I see you next week. Until then, stay safe and stay paranoid.